Good evening and welcome to another edition of the curriculum. Proper designs and building of classrooms is an important prerequisite in every school environment. If the buildings are not properly designed, of course, that has a deleterious effect on performance of students. Research has shown that to a great extent. Tonight, we will be discussing school facilities and its effect on health as school pupils. We will zoom into special needs pupils, especially the ones in Hull, where we have sampled some of our documentary series. Tonight, I have in the studio to discuss the issues. I have with me, to my immediate left, Dr. Isaac Boamah.
Yes.
Correct. Who is the who is an ophthalmologist?
Optometrist.
Optometrist.
Yeah.
Optometrist, and he is at the Hull Regional Hospital in the Volta region. Next to Dr. Boamah, I have Madam Barbara Asante. She's the Deputy Educational Officer, Special Assistant Project Sub Accra. And on the extreme left of Madam Asante, I have Isaac Lamptey, who is the Municipal Works Engineer, Ashaiman Municipality. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to the questions, I'd like to announce to our listeners that we will be joined. You can join us in the discussion. Our phone lines will be open later in the show. We will announce those numbers later. Interestingly, our social media friends can also join the discussion. They can send WhatsApp messages to 0505 311 879. Remember, no calls, just send messages to that WhatsApp number. And our Twitter friends can also join the discussion via Twitter with hashtag CurriculumGH and follow our handle at CurriculumGH. Now, first of all, I'll go to you, Mr. Isaac Lamptey. You are the Municipal Works Engineer at Ashaiman Municipality. We're talking about the physical environment, the buildings, the designs. What factors inform architectural designs, construction of infrastructural facilities, and learning environments in schools?
Thank you very much. In the first place, for a public facility, like a school facility, the first thing that we have to look at is the soundness of the structure itself, that the structure is safe, because these are places where a number of people will be gathering at a time. Two, we look at the functional space in itself. The third thing that we also need to look at is the fenestration, that's the sizes of window and doors for proper ventilation and natural lighting. We must also look at the assembly points, because they may need to have an adequate playing field and all that. So congregation at a point, we must site the structures in such a way that it doesn't impede or obstruct their movement. These are some of the basic things that we look at. We also look at the greens, because naturally the trees, what we normally call the soft landscaping, grass, trees, shrubs, flowers, and those things, they improve the output of oxygen, and that also helps. So basically, these are the things that we look at.
That sounds very interesting. It looks like there's a lot of things, but whether or not those things are considered,
yes,
or whether or not they are put in the periphery when construction is done in our schools, we will go to that. But Dr. Boamah, from your point of view as an eye specialist, what would you consider, or what do you think should be factors that should inform architectural designs in schools, from where you sit?
Okay. Yeah, they need to consider the window. Nowadays we have what you call the honeycomb windows. And then the window should be adjustable, in the sense that God gave us a natural window, which is the pupil of the eye. If you look at how the iris regulates the pupil, it means that if you are designing a window, it should be such that you can adjust it. It should be adjustable so that you can balance the inflow of the natural light as well as the artificial light. Now, supposing the room is dark, the facility has been designed in such a way that the room is dark. When the room is dark, the pupil of the eye becomes dilated. This is the pupil. It becomes dilated. That means that the size of this will increase. Now, under normal circumstances, the size of this pupil should be about 2 to 5 or 3 to 5. Now, under dim light, this one will increase to about 4 to 8 or 4 to 9. And when it happens that way, the amount of light that enters the eye becomes great. Now, there is the possibility that as the eye dilates, there is strain in the eye. And then when the eye is strained, the pupil, the cornea, which is the first layer of the eye, becomes dry due to evaporation. And so you see that the normal blinking rate, which is about 12 to 16, will reduce to about 4 to 6. And when the blinking rate is reduced, that means the eye will become dry, because the importance of the precorneal tear film is to spread the tears on the surface of the eye so that it becomes moist and it will improve vision. Now, under this condition, where the eye is dry, there is the possibility that the child, thinking that he or she has to be comfortable, he has to rub the eye. And then as they continue to rub the eye, there is the tendency that the eye will be aberrated. There will be corneal aberration. And anytime there is corneal aberration, that is a scratch, it gives them pain. And so corneal aberration, if it's not managed well, it will lead into corneal ulcer. That is a sore on the cornea. And this one will present a lot of lacrimation, that is excessive tears. And then the corneal ulcer, if that one is also not managed well, it can lead to corneal melting. The end effect will be that the child will become blind.
Obviously, we will be going into details on what the implications are if those measures that needs to be taken in designing buildings, if those measures are not followed. You've already set the pace, Dr. Boamah, but from your analysis, it tells us that it's not one day. When you obviously don't do the right thing, the implications are grave, and it's on and on and on, and possibly even for life.
Yeah.
Right. Madam Asante, from where you sit as a special assistant project, I know you are into the area of education. You've done a lot of work on the ground with special needs people. We're talking about the environment, the building that they need to be in as pupils in the classroom. What is your take on what special needs pupils, what sort of an environment or what needs to be considered in construction of an infrastructure school building for pupils like that?
Okay, thank you very much. From my point, what I would say is that when we are talking about special needs children, most of the time we consider the physically disabled. But from where I want to talk from is on children that have got neurological disturbances. And these children are people that are having problems with the work of the brain. And so we have examples, we have several of them, and then their characteristics. So when considering an environment for enabling good teaching and learning process, I think there should be space and then the arrangement of desks, because there's a term named classroom accommodation. If the structure of the building is not well in place, I'm afraid that classroom accommodation cannot be successful, and then it can also impede the teaching and the learning process in the classroom. And it can also affect teaching techniques. you know, when you're handling children with specific learning difficulties, we have some techniques that are supposed to be used in order to get the children understand whatever they are being taught. But if the structure or the environment is not really conducive, I mean, it's really going to affect the teaching and learning process. Yeah.
So what we're getting here is that it's not only the pupils who are the children, in this case, not the eye pupil, but you know, pupils in the classroom who are not only affected by improper architectural designs, but the teachers are also the impact. They are you know, they are affected in a way because they are not able to impart the knowledge that they're supposed to because the environment is not conducive for them as well. Mr. Lamptey, to what extent do, when you do, you know, you outline very nice, you know, this and that needs to be done, but to what extent do you inculcate such in your designs?
Yes, what I can say is that for architects
Right.
and those in the building design industry, first of all, they look at the land space that is available. And then they look at the demand in terms of the number of people that's needed to be accommodated within the school building. Now, what we normally do is that the beneficiaries in terms of GES, Ghana Education Service, the head teachers, the headmistresses, are the people who normally we contact for what we call the design brief. So they will tell us that, well, if you have funds to build, let's say, 6 classroom blocks, we looking at the intake for the next term, which is the ensuing year or in the ensuing term, we think that we are expecting, based on the projections, this number of people. And therefore, we expect the design to accommodate these number of people. So we have an issue of fund, which can be a limitation, an issue of land space, which can be a limitation, and then the number of pupils to be enrolled. So these are the critical things that in the first place you would want to look at. Now, where these limitations cannot be effectively managed, what it means is that we must or we may necessarily sacrifice or compromise on some of these things, and that has its implications. So that is one. Now, you also look at issues of ventilation and natural lighting. I think when we were watching the documentary, you realize that almost all the fenestration, that's the windows, the openings, were the honeycomb. Clearly, you realize that it would affect adequate lighting supply, circulation of air, cross ventilation, and all that. But from where I am sitting, I realized that in those days, the issues were more of security and fund. Because in the case of Ashaiman, you look at its location and the kind of activities that goes on there. In the past, if you could recall, most of the classrooms used the wooden jalousie windows, which was even a much better in terms of lighting, natural lighting, and ventilation and all that. But because it is easily broken into, within a certain period of time, all those things phased out, and we started implementing this design or honeycomb or the design blocks, using it for the fenestration. And that impacts negatively on the health of the children. So now, even when you come to Ashaiman now, the next cluster of schools that we are building, we are using the normal louver blades. We have seized this honeycomb thing, because it's seriously impacting negatively on the health of the pupils.
I know that in Ashaiman you are constructing new buildings for pupils. Is that Community 22 or in the
Yes.
Is that Community 22?
Yes, we have Ashaiman 3 block,
Okay.
and then we have the Community 22 annex.
To what extent are you inculcating some of these requirements into the
Yes, if you
infrastructure?
go there now, the second floor that we are building now, and including even the first floor, the ground floor used to be the jalousie window only on the basis of fund. Now we have done some renovation on the ground floor. We changed all into louver blades. Now on the top floor, we are using louver blades. And most of these things have been put in place to ensure that adequate lighting supply and all that. We are still limited with space. We have a number of projects. Some of the opinion that why don't we still put them on the compound? But we say no. The children also need adequate space for playing and for movement and all that. And therefore, we are rather liaising with TDC, who have been very helpful in providing us with land. And we are looking forward to more lands to be provided by TDC to be able to accommodate most of the schools. And the congestion and the crowding in most of our schools there will be reduced.
What about the issue of light? Because I know that is a problem in Ashaiman, the classrooms. What about the issue of light?
Yes, so
Is something that you are addressing?
yes, you realize that if you look at the documentary that we showed critically, it is more of the honeycombs that is causing the problem. Now that is not in place at all. We are using the normal louver blades, the normal standard sizes of the windows, the height, the width, the length. That is what is in place. And therefore, if you go to the Triblo school site, even as we speak, we don't have problem with lighting. It is at the main cluster of schools where we have this problem, near the market. That's where we have the problem.
Okay. Dr. Boamah, on the issue of light, you know, you were explaining that of course, when there's not improper light in the classroom, the eye is affected. And what do you think, or how do you think this issue of light can be addressed? In simple terms, how can it be addressed?
I think they need to consult some of eye health professionals like optometrists. The reason being that you need to look at the direction of the light, the natural light, in such a way that the two, as well as the artificial, we can blend them. But a situation where probably we don't look at the natural, but we concentrate on the artificial, which means we are going to have a problem. Because already I have said that anytime the light is not enough, you know, light is energy. Light is energy that is visible to the eye, which is also radiated by a moving charge particle. And so once it's energy, that means that it's capable of doing work, either good work or bad work. And so if you don't treat some of these things in a way that will help the children, its implications will be too much.
So how can you address it besides consult an optometrist? Okay, what if they don't consult an optometrist? How else can they, in their own way? Is the only answer consulting an optometrist? What if they cannot afford, or is not? What would be a simple way to say?
I also think that there are standards in the building code, and if we follow them, most of these things will be reduced. Obviously, the orientation of the building is critical in siting most of these structures, and these things are enshrined in the building code. However, I still think that over the years, cases that they might have handled would also inform us in possibly reviewing the building code. So it is important that where necessary and they are accessible, we should consult them for their inputs in the designs that we do.
Mr. Lamptey, have you been consulting them?
I must say that no.
So in putting up the one in Ashaiman, you never consulted an optometrist?
No. What we did was that
you went by the code?
Yes, by the code.
I know you were going to tell me that. So tell me, which part of the code did you? This is an examination.
Yes, it is under the orientation, natural lighting, and ventilation. These things are spelled out there in the National Building Regulation.
Okay.
LI 1630.
Okay. Did you want to say something? Sorry about that. That's our WhatsApp friends who are supposed to be texting, but they are calling. Kindly send your WhatsApp messages by text and not call that number, and that's 0505-311-879. If you are watching this program, this is the curriculum, and we're discussing school learning facilities and pupils' health. We're looking at special needs pupils as well, and we're also examining how the eye is affected when the classroom is not proper for teaching and learning. And with me in the studio, we have been doing the discussion. Here is Dr. Isaac Boamah, an optometrist from the whole Regional Health Directorate, Isaac Lamptey, Municipal Works Engineer, Ashaiman Municipality, Barbara Asante, who is Deputy Education Officer, Special Assistant Project. We'll be taking a brief break here. We will be taking a look at the footage, some of the footage that we're watching on our documentary, The Curriculum. So what we're seeing right now is the Ashaiman Municipality. What we're seeing right now is Ashaiman Municipality, where we see those honeycomb buildings. And we're also seeing where the pupils, we're also seeing where the pupils are trying to look through those honeycomb buildings. And you see they're finding themselves. You see how the light is affecting them over there, where the pupils cannot see. Dr. Boamah, you examining that child by the name Isabella, and that, is that what you normally do? Do you talk to them and tell them that you're going to examine them? Because when I go to the hospital, the doctors don't tell me what they do, they're going to do. They just start doing anything and they don't communicate. Is that a new thing in the industry?
No, that has been the ethics of the profession. You need to seek the consent of the person before you examine. So that has been part of me.
Yeah. I know that's one of your new buildings that you took us to, and that's one of the newest, an Ashaiman.
Sister Barbara, can I come in? Sister, can I come in? Yeah, on the issue of the
Welcome back. This is the curriculum, and we are discussing school learning facilities and pupils' health. And with me here in the studio during the discussion is Dr. Isaac Boamah, an optometrist from whole Regional Health Directorate, Isaac Lamptey, who is Municipal Works Engineer at Ashaiman Municipality, Madam Barbara Asante, she's Deputy Education Officer, Special Assistant Project in Accra. Now, what we just looked at, the footage we just looked at, we looked at the infrastructure there in Ashaiman, where the honeycomb buildings, what we've been discussing, its effect, the lights having an effect there, where the pupils can barely see. They're finding themselves, ventilation is the problem. And then we saw a little bit of that kid who was falling in special needs. The question is, how can the children study in such an environment? If I may ask, how can the children study? Let me go to you first, Barbara. For special needs pupils, I'll come to you, Dr. Boamah, I'll come to you. But let me go to you first. How can the children study in such an environment, especially when they are special needs?
I would say that the teaching and learning process in the classroom wouldn't be really effective. So until those factors or those conditions are met, I'm afraid that the teaching and learning processes in the class can be really successful. It's really going to affect the children, because children with specific learning difficulties, here we are, some of the children are having attention deficits. Children don't have, they are impulsive, and then they are easily distracted. So if children are really in an overcrowded classroom without ventilation, and then there's poor lighting and all that, I'm afraid the teaching and learning processes can really be possible.
Yeah, Dr. Boamah, you had a point to make.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the standards my brother said they have. You could have the standards all right, but then supposing there is a louver blade and then it's obstructing the light where probably the light is. As it rotates, it obstructs the light. That one will also have effect on the child. The reason is that the on and off, that is the flicker light, is a very serious case. Now, according to a scientist by name Hook, he proposed a law. He said anytime you have an elastic body and you apply a force, the applied force should always be proportional to the extension, provided its elastic limit is not exceeded. And so the issue of flicker light, the light will be probably too high. As the louver blade moves, it may be too high or too low. And so you see that the pupil itself dilating and then constricting, dilating and constricting is going to have effect. And also the children will copy, they won't copy the writing. And this will go a long way to affect their performance in the end. Because it does even happen that you may need just a mark or a 2 or a quarter to pass your exam. But because you copied wrongly, probably in English, because they mark, tenses. And so if we only follow the standards and then we don't consult, some of these things will affect their academic performance in the end.
Yes, I must say that in my earlier submission, I did admit that it is necessary that we consult such professionals. However, in the absence of that, what do we do? The only way out is to follow the standards. But this is an eye-opener, so it is very important that professionals in the building industry consult other professionals who can also make very important inputs so that whatever designs we come out with will be to aid the pupils in our schools.
Yeah, you're just answering the question of how we ensure that the school infrastructure and learning environments are pupil-friendly. There's somebody from Ashaiman who's saying the lighting system at Ashaiman Classroom of Schools is so embarrassing. I'm a teacher there when the afternoon sessions are on. Efficient teaching does not go on after 4:45 p.m. And the heat, Jesus, is so bad. This is from someone, and he says, my name is Edem Salah. So keep that, Mr. Lamptey.
Right.
And they said there are other problems as well, sanitation, the smokers, the stench, encroachment, and so on. So there's a lot of work on your hand there in Ashaiman. That's where a response from one of your people there in Ashaiman.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that for the Ashaiman cluster of schools, the Ashaiman Municipal Assembly admits that its location in itself is a challenge. It is sited right in the heart of the Central Business District. And this is a place where people have known to be a public facility where they access it, whether in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, as their playing fields. Aside that is where people also congregate to do most of their nefarious activities. Now, one may ask, what is the assembly doing? Or what policy guidelines do we have to address or remedy some of these things? I think that about a couple of years back, the assembly sat down and realized that no, if we do not take care and gradually relocate this school, we may end up not producing good pupils. They may not pass their exams and score high marks to go to the good schools and become professionals just as we are. And therefore, the assembly decided that, look, let's now look out for lands. And then around the periphery, which is more conducive, more serene for our schools, rather than in the heart of the Central Business District. And that is how come we have the tree block site. If you have been there, you see that the environment in itself It's a very conducive environment for learning. You go to the Committee 22 Annex, it's the same. Now, Get Fund has been able to offer us about 5 different projects. Now we have 18 classroom blocks, 2 of them, that is 3-story. 2-story, 12 classroom blocks, and with these ancillary facilities, we have 2 of them. We have a 6 classroom block, all from Get Fund. Now the assembly in itself, through its allocation of the DDF and the UDG that we have benefited, we are also upgrading the existing facilities at Tree Block so we can successfully decongest this cluster of school. The projection that we have is that by 2016, we should be able to successfully relocate these schools. And then possibly, if we have to, demolish and reconstruct. Fine, we'll look at all that. If we have to use it for other uses as well, that is still under consideration.
I know when your MC was here, Ibrahim Baidu, when we came to Ashaiman to collect data on the documentary, what we got was that the school project was about 40% or so complete. But then when he came on the show some time back, he said that there was a problem, so it would not be completed as was said. Have you?
With the ones that the assembly itself is financing through its UDG.
Okay.
By September, we'll finish 2 of them.
Okay.
We are about 50% through, and the greater part of the work has been done. The contractor is working fast, is on schedule, and we expect that before the reopening for the next term, we should be able to finish. Now, with the Get Fund 1 is completed, which is the 6 classroom block that you saw.
Okay. We'll take a call quickly. We have a caller on the line, I'm told. Hello? Hello?
Hello, good evening, madam.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm Samuel Egiani, calling from Kumasi.
I'm sorry?
I'm Samuel Egiani, calling from Kumasi.
I know you're calling from Kumasi, but I did not hear your name.
Samuel Egiani.
Samuel?
Egiani. Egiani, Samuel Egiani. Hello.
From Kumasi, go ahead with your question. I didn't hear your name, but go ahead with your question. Hello? All right, we lost that caller there. Mr. Lamptey, you were making a point. I catch you.
Yes, with the Get Fund 1, the 6 classroom block has been completed. Now, with the other classroom blocks which were under construction at the time, I think that for the fact that the funds were not flowing at the time, it's all the MCE is liaising with the Get Fund. I think now, pretty soon, the contractors will revisit the site, and we are anticipating that they will be able, once they move to site, they should be able to complete it.
Are those projects friendly for disabled friends?
Yes, yes.
All right. Okay. Yeah, Madam Asante, how do you think would have to correct this issue of infrastructure defects to enhance people's health conditions? When I say health conditions, I'm referring to the pupils with special needs. And I know that you have the issue of special, not just the physically, but then the intellectual, people with intellectual disability. That's the area that you're working in.
Yeah.
Specifics. What can we do to correct? Some mistakes have been done already. What measures should be done to correct? There's a caller on the line. I'll come back to you with that question. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, I'm calling from Asante.
Mr. Boateng, where are you calling from?
Brian,
Go ahead.
yeah, I want to contribute to the program that you're embarking on.
looking at the physical environment is very necessary so far as teaching and learning is concerned. But what I've realized in Ghanaian schools is that the structure that they put in place, they only consider those who are very fit and strong to the disadvantage of the disabled and those people. They have to consider such people because if you look at the chairs in the classroom alone, it deters people who have disability, who are disabled to study. And even those who are very strong, as looking at the chairs, there are about 3 or 4 people share one chair. And looking at the windows too, they don't consider the position of the window and other things. At the end of it, copying something on the chalkboard or the blackboard becomes a problem. So they have to restructure our classrooms in such a way that it will meet a modern standard. Gone are the days we're using the old classroom and other things, but because of study ways and other things, it is frustrating teaching and learning in the classroom. So we need to consider some of these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Boateng. Mr. Boateng's concern is that there's a lot of shoddy works. Mr. Isaac Lamptey, I'm sorry I have to come to you again. There's a lot of shoddy works, and his concern is that they are building without concern for people who are physically disabled. Everybody thinks that it's just the people who are fit. The chalkboard is far away, and I know we went to a classroom where the chalkboard is way high somewhere, and there's this kid from kindergarten who has to write on the board, and that's, we know these things are happening. That's his concern. He thinks that there needs to be re-engineering to meet modern standards. You agree?
That I agree.
Okay, excellent. Back to you, Madam Asante. And the question was, what exactly should we do to correct some of the things that we already have wrong? And from your ground, what have you picked to address the issue of special needs, especially those with intellectual disability?
Okay, thank you very much. I think there are several factors that has to be put in place for teaching and learning activity to be very well in the classrooms. From my area of study, we are talking about children that are inattentive. We are also talking about children with a learning difficulty of dyslexia, which means they have difficulty in reading. We want to talk about Allen syndrome, which has to do with difficulty in low brain interpreting printed materials. We also want to talk about dyscalculia, children that have got problems with anything that is numerical or even counting. We want to talk about autism, that is children that are having difficulty in reading and then communicating with others. We also want to talk about dysgraphia, that is children that are having the difficulty in writing. Okay, and then we have aphasia, children that are also having difficulty in motor, that their brains are not able to really send messages so that they're able to move their limbs, their body coordination. This is where we are coming from. Such children, cannot really learn in a crowded environment, and for their pace or their needs of...
There's a caller on the line. Hold your thoughts. We'll come back to that. It's very important. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, you're on air.
Okay. I'm Solomon.
Solomon, you're on air. How may we help you?
Right. Yeah. The Asante was saying back of pain.
I'm sorry, Solomon, I can barely hear you.
I'm saying
Okay. I'm sorry, but I can barely hear you, Solomon. I'm sorry, we'll have to cut that call. You may have to call back, Solomon. I cannot hear anything that you're saying. You may have to call back. Okay, yeah, going back, you were talking, Madam Asante, you were talking about the various disability, because in our environment, we always think that everybody else is physically, when we talk about disability, we all want to see that the person is blind or cannot walk, then we know the person is disabled. But then there's more to it. People with intellectual disability that we don't see but exist. And sometimes we have cultural connotations to it. We think that if we fear, that is from the home.
Sometimes
But
for
some
a
of them
child.
are very scientific, that can be proven and can be treated. And it's very important that we have conducive environment for such people as well, especially the pupils, because they have a right to that.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, continue.
Okay, so when we are looking at all these different sort of pupils in the classroom, you can imagine a child who is hyperactive and cannot keep still for a second. And then children, the other categories as I mentioned earlier. If we are supposed to have a conducive classroom for such children, then we want to talk about space. We want to talk about ventilation, and we want to talk about good lighting.
There's a caller on the line, I'm told. Hello? Hello? All right. Finish your thought. Go ahead.
Okay.
The caller is on.
However, those are not the only prerequisite factors that can aid teaching and learning processes in the classroom. We want to talk about special training of teachers into specific learning difficulties on how to help children with such difficulties to be able to learn in the classroom. We also want to talk about the home factor. We have the parental side and then the school side as well. And on the school side, I want to touch on one area, which is a term we have called IEP, which is Individualized Educational Plan. Per those children, per the difficulties that they are having, you don't really expect all of them to, get or grasp a particular curriculum at the same level. They all have different levels of teaching and understanding. Their level of understanding or even learning is different from each other. So there should be improvisation of individual educational plan for each child in the classroom. So that is one thing that has to be looked at also. And on the home factor, I want to talk about home treatments that touches on medication, nutrition, exercise.
Thank you very much. We have a caller on the line. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, hello, you're on air.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Daniel.
Daniel, how may I help you?
Okay, I need to ask. Is it good to have a structure on a very small piece of cloth?
Daniel's question, I didn't hear that, but he's asking if it's good to have a structure. Can you repeat that, Daniel?
Yeah, what I'm saying, if you want to have a building structure, is it advisable to have it on a very piece of land where there is not much space?
I'm sorry, I don't think I heard that. Can you repeat that one more time, Daniel?
And what I'm saying is it good to have a building structure on a very piece of land?
You are asking if it's good to have a structure on a small piece of land.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll leave that to. Thank you, Daniel. I think that what Daniel may probably be articulating here is whether to have a structure on a small piece of land. I think in shooting our documentary, we've been to several places. We found out that some private schools are put in homes. People are having the schools in their homes. So I think, I'm not sure, but perhaps that's what he wants to articulate. Whether you can have a structure on a piece of land. How effective, or what sort of environment is that when you have your school in a home?
Obviously.
In 2-bedroom house, and then I have a school. How is that? An architect, and then maybe the optometrist can explain to us. And from the special needs point of view, how? I have a 2-bedroom house, then I have pupils in that 2-bedroom house, and I have a school.
Obviously, for every structure, depending on the size, depending on the use, that is what determines the land space that is required. Okay. And every structure that you build, for instance, if it's a normal residential building, you are required for a single-story structure supposed to have a setback of 3 meters. at the back and at the sides. Now, you are supposed to have 5 meters in front, at least, to have some maneuvering around the house. Now, if this is meant for residential, there are a number of people who are supposed to live in that house. So if you convert this one to a school, obviously, the numbers are increasing and all that. Where is the playing field and all that? So that is wrong.
So there is a problem there.
Yes.
And from the eye point of view, 1 second. I have 1 second for you. Just a second.
Yeah, I don't know how the sitting arrangement is also.
So sitting arrangement is very important.
Yeah, it's very important because if the natural sitting arrangement, if you can't actually have the natural sitting arrangement, which means you are going to have back pains, neck pains, and the like.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boamah. Obviously, we have it clear now. Children's facilities, school learning facilities, there are implications if it's not constructed properly. The long-term effects, you cannot imagine. It's a long-term one, not only on the pupils, but the teachers as well. It's very important that we pay attention to that and we follow the code in constructing buildings and classrooms for our pupils. This has been the curriculum. We have been discussing the issue of school learning facilities and pupils' health. Dr. Isaac Boamah has been our guest tonight. He's an optometrist from Hull Regional Health Directorate. Isaac Lamptey came to us from Ashaiman Municipality. He is the works engineer, and we had our lady here, Barbara Asante, Deputy Education Officer, Special Attention Project based here in Accra. Thank you all for your contribution. Make a date with us next time in the next 2 weeks when we have once again the curriculum. My name is Rebecca Ekpe. Have a good evening.